Watch what they say. Good evening, everybody. I call to order this Town Center Advisory Board meeting for March 9th. Could we have a roll call, please?
Committee member Stephenson.
Present.
Vice Chair Leamy.
Present.
Committee member Castillo White. Committee member Andrews, excuse me. Member here. Committee member Rizzo.
Here.
Committee member Robledo. Oh, no longer, sorry. Committee member Hutchinson.
Here.
Committee Chair Wittrin.
Present.
Committee member Hinshaw.
She will not be present this evening.
Okay. On Zoom.
Diane, we got you. All right.
We're gonna mute you then, Dan, for.
There we go. All right. Thank you, everybody. For this evening, it's going to be just a little bit different for us with my new appointment to City Council. I am going to turn the reins over to Vice Chair Leamy this evening to run the show. I don't want there to be any impropriety or influencing the board in any way or shape. And I just want to make sure we're as clean as possible. And then also this evening, we are hoping to make recommendations to council. And when we get to that vote as well, I will be abstaining to save my vote for council as well. In addition, when the presentation goes to URA, I will not be making that presentation as committee member Stephenson has been on the interview board. I would like to see Tanny as well as John and David make that presentation to the URA as well, as I will not be doing it. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and flip the script a little bit and let John. So John, all yours.
Okay. Why don't we stand and do the flag?
Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Are you running it? Okay.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do not have any public in the room, and we do not have any public online, right?
You have Paul Wilcox.
Pardon?
Paul Wilcox.
And Shelley.
And Shelley.
So Paul or Shelley, do you have any comments?
None for me.
None for me, thank you.
Okay, so we hand it over to you.
We're gonna hand it over to David.
Okay.
So good evening, committee members. Good to see you all. Seen a lot of you the last couple of days. So what we have tonight is the four of us will be working with you, as Jordan mentioned, as former chairperson Wittrin mentioned. Tonight is to bring forward a ranking and to city council. So we really have a very simple agenda. What we thought we would do is just spend the next, half an hour, 45 minutes. If we need more, we'll take more, but just having a conversation about what we heard and saw. And I would encourage everybody to focus on, as we talked earlier, is to focus on the positive. Focus on, the teams, what you heard, and who would be the best partner you think for the city. We'll be taking notes. And what will happen is we're going to reach a point where I'm going to hand it off to Marley, and she's going to kind of reiterate back what we heard. And that'll help inform the staff presentation that the three of us, me and John and Tanny, will be giving. Frankly, it's going to be mostly you guys speaking to your peers on council. So tonight is an opportunity just for all of us to kind of weigh in again and kind of talk about what we saw. From the city side, Matt Brown is here again, and Abe Barkus is also here online. And so really the ball is in your court, and we're here to answer questions or to provide feedback about what we heard. And yeah, interested to hear what people think. So I'll turn it back to you, Charlene.
One quick thing I'll just add to that is this will help us write our staff report as well for the urban renewal agency meeting that's going to be on the 21st. So I'm going to be keeping live notes running on the screen as you guys are talking to help us inform and make sure we're capturing what you're saying so that it can go in the staff report.
Okay. Who would like to share comments first?
Okay,
Okay.
I guess I'll go. I want to thank everyone for allowing me to be part of that interview panel. It's very educational. And I guess I'll just start, and my focus all along has been kind of how this lines up with the town center plan. So those 3 years of work and kind of what that committee was looking for. And I'd have to say, I really felt that Capstone nailed that vision better than anyone else did. They had less multifamily, they had the townhomes, they had the retail, and it seemed to me that they really got what the city was after. And so I would say the downside to Capstone is they want a direct access through the mall. And that's going to take a little bit more work than some of the other partners might be. But I also think, based on my own experiences in my professional life, I don't think this thing works without access through the mall. Sorry, I'll just be real blunt. I don't think it will make it. I think it's going to be tough with the access through the mall, but I think without it, it just doesn't work. And I think, some of them have got more residential, and if it's strictly a residential development, if that's what you're counting on, you can do the access around the back side and make that work, because people drive to get home. But if you're looking for a sense of place and activate the river and all of those things, you're gonna have to have access, you're gonna have to have the connections, and that's something we've talked about a lot in this group. I just felt, for meeting them, I felt they would be an excellent partner. Something else that I thought was good was they came in with potential tenants to the meeting. And I thought that really said something. Because I think, for me, I think this development has got to be something that isn't anywhere else and has to have things they can't get anywhere else. And so if it's an apartment building and an Applebee's or something, you're not any different than anybody else. But if you've got like a unique brewery to this area, and you've got, a rooftop bar, just different things going on, and a plaza and those types of things, I think it will be a destination. I think that will work, or can work. I would say, also for me, Wood Partners did better in the interview process than what I thought. So, frankly, they ranked better than where I thought they would have been, or at least where I had them going into the process, because I felt they really wanted to work with the city, wanted to be a partner. But then again, the downside for me, and this could change, but they had a lot of 5-story buildings right up close to the river, and it would kind of, in my opinion, make the park kind of be their park. not so much our park. Just an opinion. But I thought all of them came very well prepared, and all of them were substantially different. Like Wood had money up front for the city, which I think is enticing. But then again, Capstone had a higher value on the property than what Wood did. And they were trading it off in infrastructure. And I went back and tried to listen, David, maybe you can clarify for me. I didn't catch what Eco's value was for the property. I thought they kind of said it was negligible, right?
I don't
Did I
think
have
my
that
notes
right,
have it
Marla?
either.
What?
No, I don't, do you remember?
There
that?
wasn't, I
don't know
didn't
that it
catch,
was mentioned.
The
they
question,
didn't-
did Ethos talk about the value for the property?
I
I don't
think they
recall
mentioned
anything.
it.
I don't
Yeah.
remember any figures.
I thought they said.
I don't believe they've said anything.
What did Abe say?
Abe?
I don't think Ethos talked about the value of the land. Only Wood and Capstone mentioned it.
Paul, right?
That's it.
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think, I thought they addressed it like it was basically kind of just gonna be a swap
Right.
for some of the work that they were gonna do. So, I think anybody, I got the impression at first that Time Equities might only partner with Ecos. And at the end of this, I got the impression that they would talk to anyone and possibly work something out. Yeah.
That was
Time
asked.
Equities would work
Yeah.
with someone else.
That was asked, and they
Yeah.
seemed to suggest that they would work.
Oh, they did.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I heard the opposite. That they were not gonna have a dialogue with anybody else, because they wouldn't have control.
They said they would, but they would need to be an equity partner to some extent.
They didn't necessarily word it that way. They said they would need to see a benefit. And the benefit was internally assumed that they meant financial benefit.
That was Ethos speaking, though, not Mr. Zip, right?
No, that was
Was it?
Ami, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Weren't they
That was
implying that
three
the
times I
value is
did not
coming
catch that.
from actually, like, basically being the point of contact for the tenants in the properties as well? I know they said they have extensive experience with that, but it sounded like they were kind of alluding to the fact that they wanted a stake in continuing that relationship as almost like an extension of the property that they own next door. It was kind of the impression I was getting as far as how they were kind of visualizing it. Which is concerning somewhat to me, I think.
I did hear the benefit piece as well, but his tone in which he delivered that, me personally, I did not receive it as whether or not he would work. I'm still questioning whether or not he would work with anybody else. The words coming out of his mouth and the tone of which he delivered were not necessarily lining up very well with each other.
I agree.
I had real hesitancy with the partnership with Time Equities because as positive as all the groups were, that was the only piece that was difficult to swallow.
I think it's fair to say, I'll ask my colleagues to jump in too, but I think it's fair to say, to the point of you have a master plan and what that vision of the master plan, whoever is selected to get to the next stage, all the teams have shown the desire per the letters and per what we heard to enter a conversation. I don't work for Time Equities, but I do understand that when one is in a business relationship and you've sort of said that you're on my team, you may not show right there your willingness to have this very open conversation. But it was one of the questions that I actually asked them that we talked about. And no, it wasn't coming out and cheerleading per se, but I think there was a definite willingness to hear what needed to be offered
Yeah.
if there was a benefit. And I think that, so
Well said.
yeah, so that's, so, yeah.
One of the things that they did say repeatedly is that we're here at the table, and if we didn't want to be involved, we wouldn't be here at the table. So I think that that sort of reiterates that as well, without saying, oh yeah, we'll work with whoever. Like, as David was saying, they'd already committed to working with one team, so I don't think they want to throw them under the bus.
But they did make it very clear that there would be no access through the mall for vehicles.
I think Tanny and I were both taken back by that, from just a retail standpoint. And
Did not hear it that way.
You did not.
Did not. Heard it again, the notion of having an open conversation, to me, is an open conversation. So they definitely, what they put on paper is clear for all of us to see, but I got the sense and that they'd be open to a conversation. And we know that one of the groups is, resting on that conversation, is making that conversation critical to them moving forward. So, because we had conversations, and I don't know if it's in the notes, but there was, one of the things is we asked the internal group, there was notions of phasing. And one of the groups suggested, yes, we would be willing to have a conversation about phasing. So on our side of the ledger, they were open to having that conversation. I don't think we're going to know what's going to happen with time equities until those conversations happen via DNA. And this project has been going on, everybody's told me, for many, many years than I've even known about. So, but my ears kind of heard a little bit of a door opening, a little bit of a willingness to have that conversation. That's, I think, I would maybe ask the committee to think more about, who do you think might be able to have that conversation, or what else do you think that they could bring to the table that would bring the other party on board to have that conversation? So I think that's what Tanny was speaking to.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, you say a lot of things, and there's more than one way to get access through there. But what he did say was he's worried about the safety of children and cars speeding through there. And those are all things that can be addressed pretty easily. But I think at the end of the day, if these are business people, they have to look at that project and what's going on there and say, wow, a lot's happened, and we probably have to rethink our identity and our business model. And I think it's an opportunity, really, for them to do that. They might not normally have.
David, can I jump in for just a minute, or?
Please.
So at the end of the questioning with Avi from Time Equities, initially he did start out being a little bit of bluster, but he definitely preferred starting out with a walking path where they wouldn't have to break open the mall entirely. But I think the last question asked of him, would you be open to discussions on both vehicular and walking? And I definitely heard him say, it's open to a discussion. Now, did he say it with a lot of energy? No, but he said it. So I think that was really important. The other piece is he had discussions with some of the Ethos people after the interview. And I think Paul was the point person for Ethos. And he mentioned that Time Equities is really interested in being the equity in the redevelopment of the Confluence area. And his comment, and others can correct me if they heard it differently, were also had included over time, Time Equities is going to be redeveloping the mall, or likely will be redeveloping the mall. And it wouldn't be the mall, it would probably be a mixed use type of project. So I think those are things to give some thought to.
Yeah, to what Abe was referring to at the end, what Ami had said at the end, I wrote it down word for word and said, if we're involved in this project, we're open to a dialogue.
So that is positive.
That was open to a dialogue
Yeah.
with the city. That's the context I got.
You mean?
When you
about
said,
the road?
you're talking about Ami Ziff's comment about we're open to a dialogue?
Yeah,
That was, he was directing his comment to the city,
right.
not to another developer that might get the project.
Not sure.
Because you asked that directly.
I did ask it directly, but even if you're, again, don't know, but they know this, they know the city's desire, right? Because it's in the master plan, and there's been conversations, and people have visited and have had this conversation. So we don't know, but I think it's reasonable to suggest that city and other development teams are synonymous.
This is their chance, this is their final interview, correct? They're not gonna be spoken to again?
Who's this?
These 3 developers, they're not gonna get any more interview time.
Not unless council decides that they want to
Right.
have another conversation.
So if I was a developer, I would make myself very clear, not ambiguous, because the reception I got with time equities is it's ethos or we're not playing.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else here feels the same way, but I looked at it 3 times.
Yeah.
Over the last week.
Yeah.
And I could not come up with any other conclusion.
Okay.
I chalk that up to kind of to Marley's point, just from a professional standpoint, you built these business relationships. It would look bad on you if you were to basically say like, oh yeah, this doesn't mean anything to me at the table. Like, I think based on their posturing, how they were talking from the get-go, their confidence, I would say, because they did say that they're open to a discussion, that is probably a soft way of saying, I mean, anybody who ends up with that project is gonna have to work with them. It's just kind of the way it has to go, if it's gonna happen. And to kind of base everything on what they're posturing at the beginning,
I think that Wood Partners took a different stance. I think Wood Partners said, yeah, they're not gonna play, so we have an alternate plan, which I actually think could work. With the proper signage and having a grand entry into that community, even though it loops around, I think that's a very possibility that should be looked at.
definitely a creative approach. I would say though, like in tying in with kind of the vision that we've all been talking about and kind of the tying with the rest of downtown and making it flow, and then of course like the actual riverfront side that comes along with that plan, I personally feel like the cons outweigh the pros with that design in particular. They, I think, kind of backtracked a little bit to cover the tracks and saying like, like there are options here that we could explore, but that plan overall, as far as just relying on that, is especially with other concerns that I think you had about traffic in that relation, people are going to be living back there, it could get kind of messy.
And then it brings up the point that Capstone is kind of saying, hey, if we don't have that direct route through the outlet mall, we don't see this working, which kind of makes me think, okay, well, are you going to be out of this if it's not going to happen that way?
Yes. The answer to that.
Would it be helpful for me to share the follow-up questions and
Sure.
responses right now? Okay, I'm gonna share my screen really quick again on that screen. Because we did have some follow-up questions for them, and I think that can, where the right screen is, show all windows. Okay. This is Capstone's responses. So one of the questions that we first asked was, how do you plan to reach out to time equities regarding putting in a complete street? How much front end effort would you be willing to devote to this in conjunction with the city? Their response was, putting in the complete street is the most critical piece to realize the city's, Capstone's, and various stakeholders' vision for a high quality destination mixed use project. Capstone will commit all necessary time and expertise in partnering with the city to reach out to time equities and negotiate the addition of a new street into the Confluence site. Capstone has a relationship with the retail broker who represented Starbucks lease at the Columbia Gorge outlets. He is one of Capstone's retail broker partners and has offered to make an introduction to time equities. We asked them if they would be willing to consider a phased approach that acknowledges a pedestrian connection in the short term and a future complete street at a later phase. And they said, we may be willing to consider a phased approach based on identifiable milestones, such as moving tenants and or pre-leasing the new proposed retail buildings. The new street would need to be completed prior to the completion of phase 1. And then we asked, without the direct street access, is there any modified version of your vision you could propose? And they said, no, we are only interested in the larger mixed-use destination project and vision we proposed. So that was Capstone's. I don't know if you want to talk about that or if you want to move on to the wood one.
Yeah, I'll have comments, but go ahead.
I think it goes right back to what Tanya was saying, is you look at a destination spot that Capstone has. They have the street, we're making a destination, sense of place area for people to go. And we need that street, and that's what Capstone needs, is they need that street to make it work. Now, Wood, on the other hand, is putting all in all the apartments, we're putting in a residential, and they could make it work, pencil it out on dollars and cents with the side street going in. And that's what makes that property work for them, because now it is a residential, it isn't a destination point necessarily. It is now residential.
Mhm.
So it works both ways. It just depends on what we are going to recommend. And depends on the street. I think everybody in this room wants the street. Just a matter of whether or not we can get it. So. Go ahead.
So I think Capstone's plan is very strong to go to time equities with, because their proposal has a lot of benefits to time equities and the mall. We're going to cut it way through, but we're going to provide you more retail space in exchange for what we're doing. And I think they are the destination places we're looking for. My second choice would be Woods. The only thing, I think the community, we're representing the community here, and I think the community would be far more in favor of the Capstone one. They don't, it's my understanding that they don't want an apartment complex down there. And that's what Woods is proposing, basically.
Yeah, they're proposing 372 apartments, 35 townhomes.
Right.
Well, what happened to the homeownership down there?
They don't do home ownership, they'd have to get somebody else to do it. They don't,
They only do rentals.
yeah, they just do
But
rentals.
they said they would do it. They would open it up to a home builder.
Yeah,
They would sell it to a home.
They
Right.
would, but they
Yeah.
wouldn't be doing it.
I guess,
That's a good segue for me to do Wood's comments, if you want to hear those now, because that does address exactly that.
Do you want to make your comments first? or-
yeah,
Let's-
I was just gonna say, I look back at this and I look, okay, so there's some advantages to Woods. There's also, believe it or not, some advantages to Ecos and Capstone. But when I look at this kind of, I guess from a financial position, we went door to door and we did a $7.5 million bond to do something with this property that was gonna be really special. And we were spending $4 million on a park down there to make this something special. And we've looked at condemning a street to make this something special. And we spent, what, $5 million to clean it up, I think?
That's more than that.
Wait,
Almost $8 million to do the cleanup on it, so that it could be something. And so, where we go?
May I make a comment?
Yes.
I would encourage the group not to look at things so black and white. these guys are doing something that's more aligned with the town center, and these guys are doing something with just apartments. First of all, I think all the schemes showed a connection to the waterfront. So that waterfront from the downtown to that area, 2,000 acres, will be for this whole community. The other piece, it's a matter of degree. So I don't think, I could be mistaken, but I don't think anybody's just gonna put in all residential. There'll be a coffee shop, there'll be an ice cream store, there'll be those types of things, because those things do support making a neighborhood. That may not be exactly what you're all after. It may not align with your vision, but I would just encourage you not to look at it very black and white, because there will be elements from people to walk around and grab that coffee or get some dinner or whatever. It just may not be exactly what you all are thinking. The other piece that I just want to throw out and have Abe and Matt jump in is, remember, we all said, and I think we believe this, the plans are just a framework. They're better than a diagram, but I wouldn't kind of bet my life that that's how it's going to go down. So that's something to consider. They will evolve. And given what we know, how the conversations happened, how they evolved, I think it's fair to say there's going to be a lot of talk, a lot of dialogue before anything really happens. I could ask Matt and Abe to jump in based upon their experience, but I don't think they're going to figure this out in a weekend. You know, whoever is the winning group, there's going to be a lot of talk both internally with the city, with time equities. There's just going to be a lot of dialogue. So just, I don't know, that's helpful, but I would just sort of keep it in the back of your mind. There's still quite a bit of work to happen. We're at this point, you know, collectively, you guys are, is just kind of putting forward who you think is the best person to really start this conversation on behalf of the city. Add anything to that, or?
I mean, the only other thing I'd say is that one of the things we were looking for, I guess, when we asked some of the questions in the interviews, was to listen for how are you planning on working with the community? Like how fixed are these plans, right? We wanted to try to get a sense from them. I did, you know, I think the Woods program is one thing, you know, talk a little bit about that, but I did hear a willingness on their part, right, to engage with the community and really work with them on the planning. I mean, all the teams really said that, you know, and each of them are going to have their, you know, kind of needs, right, from their perspective as developers and what they need to accomplish. So Capstone's told us about the street, and, you know, Wood has told us a bit about their program and what they do. So we know that they have certain tendencies, but I did hear a lot of good willingness on everyone's part to want to come in and work in good faith, you know, with people on the further iterations of the plan.
Yeah, the architect for Hacker talked a lot about their process of reaching out to the community. And I'll just tell you, I work with those guys. They're good. Like they have a really unique way and a real desire to engage the community. So that they all do, right? But they, you know, just trying to, anyway, not trying to make things difficult, just trying to give you a perspective for what we
David,
heard.
From my 2 cents perspective, you know, what you're looking for often when you do these in-person interviews is to get a feel for who you'd like to be working with for the next several years or longer. Is it a firm that is going to be able to devote a resource to your project as opposed to jumping off into something else and maybe not paying as much attention? So you need to figure out which of these firms fit that bill, who's got the temperament and the passion and kind of related interests to what you want to try to achieve as a community. And I think all of them, any one of them could do a project there. It's how flexible they're going to be, how willing they're going to be to work with you and make sure they understand you and stick with you even over some tough time.
Okay, so I'm going to read the Wood comments.
Okay.
Would you be willing to reach out to Time Equities regarding putting in a complete street? How much front-end effort would you be willing to devote to this in conjunction with the city? They said, yes, absolutely. As discussed in our meeting, we have made contact with Time Equities already, but they opted to not share any of their plans with us, given that they are a part of a competing applicant team. We are confident that we can work on the same or similar terms with Time Equities as the other applicant team. We'd be focused on coming to a plan with them as the key priority once the city makes its selection. There would be no specific timeframe imposed on our end for working through this aspect. We would keep the city appraised on the conversations and invite them in as appropriate. And we asked, assuming that Time Equities is willing to entertain a complete street, direct connection to the heart of the site, would you be willing to consider less multifamily housing, more ownership housing, and the addition of creative maker spaces and businesses, which is more in line with the city's vision for the site? They said, yes, we'd like to see a diversity of housing unit types and deliver a scale of units that's conducive to creating a successful mixed-use community. We are flexible on the exact number of housing units and have willingness to decrease. We then asked, we understand that you're currently assuming utilizing a 10-year 80% abatement on multifamily residential through a multi-program. What other incentives would you consider in order to reduce the number of multifamily units proposed and still feel confident in your pro forma? And they said, the answer to this would depend on what other uses are added to replace the multifamily housing and by how much the multifamily housing is reduced. But we don't expect there to be a material change in the incentives needed. We think it's a good idea to keep below the maximum public investment per BOLI rules if possible. If subsidy is needed for infrastructure or road costs, then that may be able to be considered a separate project, especially if it's off-site from the Confluence property. Finally, we asked how a phased approach, if they would be open to a phased approach that acknowledges a pedestrian connection through the outlet mall in the short term and future complete street at a later phase, and how that would affect their design. And they said that this could be achieved. Key aspects of the site plan circulation design in our mind are logical wayfinding, circulation for visitors, including turnaround, fire department access, and mixed use and active frontage along the riverfront park. If we have reasonable certainty of achieving the new central connection through Time Equities property, then we'd absolutely want to orient the site plan around that, even if there's an interim condition.
What was good about Wood too was they were gonna pay for infrastructure and just wanted the 80% tax abatement and weren't anticipating any funds from Troutdale. That was one of the positives for me. And they were very willing to change that plan. The thing I didn't like is they didn't have any commercial lined up at all. They were.
Not at the moment. Not at the moment.
Yeah. But they said they were willing to talk to the hotels and everything right now.
Your experience, David, not being committed to a architect, does that mean they were really open to changing their concept even more so than?
That's a great, the answer is yes. Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting that they didn't come in with it because I know the architects that they used, and actually if you follow the photos, the architects that they were showing were the architects that the other team had. Mm-hmm. So they showed a project by Hacker, they showed a project by Anchor Moyson, and there's other people in town. There's not just 3 firms who can do it. Yeah, I'd be curious to know what Michael's thinking is. He could go with YBA, which is who he used at Rockwood, or he could go with a bunch of other firms.
But just because what he has on paper, he could be even more flexible than
Yeah, I think that was, I don't know, I mean, I think he was incredibly, it was a very interesting approach by their part to not come in with the architect to say, hey, we can do all this stuff. But I mean, he is, I mean, 100% confident he's going, if they were the ranked number one or the chosen team, they would bring in a team, a design team that you would all be really excited about.
Yeah, they seem willing to get going right away too. I mean, they seem more gung ho on getting started than the other ones did. And they're the only ones that said they'd accept a ground lease also. And they had plenty of parking. And they weren't insisting on a parking lot, which it sounded to me like Time Equities really wanted us to build a parking lot. They mentioned it a couple times. Us to build it, not them.
Anything else from you, Victoria?
Hmm?
I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh, but I'm with you. I loved capstones. But if Wood's willing to move toward something like they did, that's good too.
I definitely thought that a lot of them, I mean, most of them seemed pretty ready to go, but I think it was a matter for me of the sincerity and the kind of passion behind the vision of it. And I do appreciate you guys kind of, and Abe continuously kind of directing us back towards focusing on kind of the bigger picture when it comes to our involvement. But on your note, I do think that Wood had a really good mindset when it came to the hotel being more of a destination place, their confidence in that being something that was kind of an exception to the rule when it comes to kind of the industry as a whole, hospitality. And they did have, some decent distribution of, mixed commercial and things like that throughout the site and, restaurant and whatnot. But I feel like overall, Capstone, again, knocked it out of the park when it comes to kind of their passion behind placemaking and really putting the emphasis on and really taking, I mean, they must have been paying attention because I feel like they really latched on to kind of every word along the process that we've said. They're the only ones that incorporated even like the little details that we've kind of thrown out there for really making good use of rooftop space, the waterfront, the gathering spaces, the uniqueness of the locations, even their little idea that they had with the hotel with the cabins and, whether or not, of course, like you're saying, it gets down to the specifics if that ever really comes to fruition, but they have the right vision for it. And I think that's better aligned with where we've been this whole time in the sense that we do need the street going through there and them kind of refusing to budge on that, I still feel like is kind of in line with where we are, because realistically, that's going to be essential for the site, I think. And they're not putting a time frame on it. None of them are putting a time frame on it. It sounds like they're willing to kind of work through those talks and make things happen as needed. But and they're the ones who put forth, I would say, probably a good faith effort towards Time Equities when it comes to kind of bridging that gap between their interest in it by providing some ideas for maybe additional retail space, making their space, our space, essentially like conducive to their business as well, trying to show that we can basically have a partnership without necessarily making a compromise where we don't want to. Wood, I thought also did put on a very good presentation. They do seem a lot more flexible to a degree. It sounds like they're willing to budge a little bit when it comes to that, but obviously the bottom line matters. And that did also show through though, I think with Wood and Ethos both, the way that they were answering questions I noticed was very much, even when we're talking, you asked a question, David, I believe, about involving small business in kind of filling these spaces. And to hear those responses, like from Ethos, that was like right off the bat, just being like, oh yeah, they're more trustworthy financially, like we've had to do this COVID, and like going into the stuff, it's like, it's a little tone deaf, like, and then at the very end, but, they make up the backbone of the small community. It felt kind of, like they missed the mark a little bit, maybe realized that at the end, but like the emphasis, I feel like from Capstone from the get-go has been like, this could be an awesome space. And that's the impression I got from not every step of the way there, but that's, let's see if I had just a quick.
Just real quick, Zach.
Yeah, by all means.
Yeah, just to jump in real for a second.
Yeah.
Time Equity said that they favor bringing in local business, the local retailers. But then you look at what the mall did is they brought in for a place for food in the mall, a Subway, and for a coffee shop, they bring in Starbucks.
Sure.
So kind of going against what he said, right?
I mean, yeah, the mall, and granted, like the mall was there before and it was kind of a separate commercial space than kind of the vision that this project is. So like, I will give them some wiggle room when it comes to like matching up with, this new development. But yeah, they pull a lot nationally when it comes to referencing things, which is good and bad. I think like the good being, they have a lot of experience in like bringing in cool artistic ideas. Like they mentioned like a water tower, like way out in the Midwest somewhere or something. I was like, oh, this would be kind of cool here. So they can draw on that expertise as well, but they also, like I said, kind of just, I feel like miss the point sometimes when it comes to like that feel that we're going for. With Capstone focusing also on like the outdoor adventure kind of aspect of it, I thought was kind of neat in the sense that obviously trying to be more of a destination place right here at the gorge, thinking about the river, thinking about outdoor stuff, kayaking. In the Parks Advisory Committee, we were kind of going over some ideas for camping in Glen Otto, but part of that conversation was national statistics on more families than ever essentially going outdoors and camping and using trails nationally since COVID hit. So, it kind of seems like it's also like a viable theme, if you will, for that, and not necessarily like it can't change and flex in the future because the space is going to be there. But as long as that skeleton remains, that we essentially envision matches what the city makes, then we can kind of, go from there. But yeah, it's kind of my general spiel.
Diane, you've been waiting patiently.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, thank you. I wrote down some notes. I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm in New Mexico for a funeral. And so it'll just take me a few minutes, but I think then you'll gather the spirit in which I want to contribute dialogue. The original measure 2677 asked the citizens of Troutdale to be part of Troutdale's future. The Troutdale Riverfront Renewal Plan was approved by all committees and City Council. The endorsements were the Gresham Outlook, WCG Chamber, and the Columbia Gorge outlets. The renewal plan included improved access to the wild scenic Sandy River, develops Riverfront Park and Community Plaza, creates more attractions, restaurants, and shops, completes downtown, creates more jobs. The full vision includes, if this was adopted, a pedestrian overpass to provide easy access between the historic downtown and the new riverfront amenities. For the first time, our town center will be unified instead of divided by railroad tracks. Additional public parking to benefit all who visit, workshop, and play in Troutdale. A public plaza as a venue for community events for all Troutdale citizens. A Sandy River Trail connecting the 40-mile loop system, a scenic route for biking, hiking, and walking within Troutdale. A riverfront park guaranteeing public ownership and access for families to this beautiful section of the Sandy River. The urban renewal has gone through many years of work by committees, citizens, and staff, and council. Many citizens are excited to have the area reflect what they voted for. I was on the committee and helped on the Citizens for Troutdale Riverfront Renewal Plan. As I went door to door for the measure 2677 flyer or concerning other meetings pertaining to the URA and Waterfront Trail, no one asked for apartments for the site, including the City Council. The discussions and hopes were for a vibrant, family-friendly, Pacific Northwest / small town feel, open space and trail focusing on our Mount Hood glacier-fed, beautiful Sandy River. The open houses for the trail included talks of a way to enjoy the space for potential concerts, Saturday markets, Water park, historic markers explaining the history, flora, Sandy River, the natives at Broughton Bluff, wayfinders, and showing Mount Hood and the Columbia River, etc. Creating a special place to celebrate all the beauty and the best that Troutdale has to offer, to gather, enjoy the Sandy River and vistas. And that's why we chose to live here. The one choice that reflects this, this unique vision of that would do justice to the space is Capstone. Their approach of the site is carefully crafted to capture the vision. Capstone Park Plaza has featured area along the Sandy River as to give the citizens best use in space featuring the waterfront. Ethos 5-story buildings along the waterfront are not very, I don't feel meets that mark. Woods cuts the area, Woods near the trail with 4-story units, and some on the lower level have no retail or restaurants. It'll feel like you are intruding on renters' living space while being on the water path. There are no 5-story apartments in Troutdale, and I don't feel 5-story is a good match for that small town feel. The Capstone team are excited about creating a Made in Oregon experience. They are passionate about the gorge. They want to create a destination point in Troutdale like the models they used were Hood River, and I did look up the Barlow Market destination in Sebastopol, California. They want a public accessible park plaza to be a place for people to connect, gather to the river downtown to eat, play, and meet. They envision warm architecture with nature. With the help of Sam, Good Coffee, he's very creative, creating exceptional spaces for the Pacific Northwest. They're focused on recruiting craft people and businesses. They're excellent in food and product, and already have some special Oregon tenants lined up. Food and adventure around consumer experiences. They understand the first 30 feet matter by the trail. That is where you connect to people, making people a place where they want to be. Woods and Ethos do not create a place by the water for the citizens and the visitors of Troutdale. Sam understands that the coffee shop down there on average brings 200 to 400 people a day, contributing to traffic to help the other businesses. Capstone likes some of the building finishes at the Pearl and Slabstone. I go on and on. So their multifamily is 106 units, 88 townhomes. Ethos and Woods, with their high residential numbers, will make its own city. It will not feel like a place for our citizens, tourists, and visitors. The city council and others wanted limited or no residents in this area, preferring special work campus for local businesses. So what I'm trying to say is that I really was enthusiastic, me also being an artist and being in the Saturday market and loving Hood River, that they had a vision and they knew how to put it together and to get people excited, and already have some people that want to be there. So they're wanting to create a place that genuinely we get to enjoy the waterfront. It's an open plan and it was expansive along the whole river. So it really felt like if I would go down to the waterfront, that me and my family, like it was ours. The others with could potentially be 500 units or so if you don't have the hotels. It really is residential heavy. And so it's just not, I don't think that's the past and what we've discussed, the work that we've done. I understand you said we could work with anyone, but we were tasked with, for those having the task of presenting the vision and having the parameters that we set before them. And so to me, Capstone is the only one that captures something that will be exciting to go to and feel like me as a resident will enjoy that space. But since I enjoy it, anybody who comes to visit or tourists will also be attracted to it as well. Thanks.
I felt that Capstone seemed to understand our vision. My notes were Sam seemed to understand the hospitality that we were looking for. They had glasses. They seem to be hearing us. I love the idea of the little pocket ideas that they had of doing like little cabins here and then this over here. I mean, they just kind of brought it together, which kind of brought where I've gone to other cities and found those little tiny little niches, and it's really cool to have those little niches too. And I just thought they were listening. They had the hotel and they talked about the boutique hotels as well. They had townhomes and home ownership opportunities. Their idea of the waterfront, I thought spoke more to what the city wanted, more to what our wants were. Woods, I just had a lot of concerns. The one thing I really liked was their ideas of the hotels. You know, some of their pictures that they had were just amazing to me. And, but I'm very concerned about the high rate of apartments. I mean, they had written down 372 apartments, 35 townhomes. My concern with the townhomes was those were in phase 3. What happens if they run out of money and they decide they're not gonna do it? Then there's no townhomes. I didn't feel like that they really captured the vision of what we had. You know, they brought up staycations, and Rick and I go and do staycations, and we've been to Hood River, and we've been to, you know, different places, and we kind of like that, but I just didn't feel like in their conversations it was something that would be like, come see. And then I felt like all their buildings were so close to the waterfront. I went back to the idea of I would not feel comfortable being down there. Ethos, I struggled with the interview at Ethos. I mean, I struggled because I couldn't hear some of it. They did talk about the extension of downtown. They did have other ideas of more homes than apartments, which gave them a higher rating for me, but there was just they were talking about permits, and they were talking about TIF, and they were talking about all these things that I didn't understand. And so it just didn't make sense to me, because I don't think that way. I did not like the New York guy at all. And it's not for his personality, it just felt like, I don't know if he was really hearing us. I didn't feel like he was open. You know, I struggled with that, and he was late to the meeting. I mean, you guys had to wait with the Ethos meeting.
He was on 2 other calls.
Yeah, and so I just felt like we weren't as important to him, and they had their own idea. Yeah. So that's just my 2 cents.
I'll just say real quick that I favor the capstone plan. I think the wood team is the best for the city. So I'm kind of in a pickle there, but I know that Woods is very flexible, and they seem like they're willing to listen and make adjustments to what they proposed. So I'm a little bit weighted towards Wood.
I had a question too. And I like the capstone plan, but they said it's too early to know who their equity partner would be. And talked a lot about finances are hard to get. I don't know. I mean, are they gonna have the money to do this?
They are a well-respected, well-resourced group. I think one of the things that they all said was, it is a difficult market out there. And I think what they were saying that right now, the multifamily is the easiest thing for them to pursue. If you said you had to go today and you had to make something work, the multifamily is the easiest thing to do. So I don't think they were necessarily, I think they were being very straightforward with you. You have numbers and you have what their program is, but I think they're also, I think they suggested, and I think all the teams suggested, it's a little bit of a waiting game, because you're gonna go through this due diligence period to see if there's a relationship, if there's a marriage there between the development community and the city. And it's gonna take some time, and in the meantime, the markets and things are trying to figure out their own direction. So no one really, I'm not sure anybody really quite knows at the moment. I think, repeating myself, but I think residential multifamily is the easiest place to go at the moment. Want to jump in, Matt? Oh, sorry.
I mean, Abe, I'd be interested in hearing what you have to say too. I mean, I do think there's a lot of the upfront work that these teams are going to put in is not going to require a lot of cash, right? They're working with architects, they have relationships with, they're basically going to be working through a lot of this stuff and kind of self-fund a lot of it. The equity needs really come in when you're really ready to like break ground and really start the development, then it becomes critical. And again, I think all of us in the past have kind of reiterated that these teams all have a great track record in terms of performance, being able to capitalize their projects, move stuff through. So we're not too concerned about that. When the market is there, I think all these teams are capable of getting those things done. The only outlier here is time equities, which comes with, their own bag of cash to put on the table, right? Everyone else kind of operates on a very similar model. Abe, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right on track. It's way too early to start thinking about equity because you don't know exactly what you're going to build and who's going to want to participate. But each of them does have an incredible track record, which is wonderful. One thing you may want to think a bit more about is who has worked in smaller cities and been able to raise the equity and debt to get projects that are really very wonderful completed. And yeah, just I think if you dig into where they've worked, that might be helpful.
David, maybe you could expand on the whole issue with wood when we're talking about prevailing wage and them not having to pay prevailing wage and sliding under versus capstone. And because I mean, it ended up talking about millions of dollars worth of difference, right?
I'm going to the developers on this one.
And the way they were structuring it, and yeah.
Let's start with Abe.
Let's start with Abe. Abe, did you hear the question? We lost Abe.
Go ahead, please repeat it.
Yeah, so Jordan, I'll let you repeat it.
Well, there was questions you were asking, and it wasn't super clear, but the difference between wood and capstone, and I know it's like difference of millions of dollars that they're paying when it comes to prevailing wage and the bully issues and being able to slide under that and how they were structuring that and why wood was able to, how they were able to structure that and being able to save that money.
Mm-hmm. So I think if I understand the question correctly, prevailing wage kicks in if there's more than $750,000 and 99 cents of public money in a project. And then all of a sudden you're into prevailing wage. And what prevailing wage means is that you're going to be paying state determined wages for each of the key trades that are involved in construction right now. And Matt, feel free to jump in. I think those rates can be as high as 15 to 20% more than the non-prevailing wage rates. And that's usually on the denser projects, the ones that are mixed use and commercial products. It usually doesn't, it's usually not as painful, prevailing wage that is, on lower profile projects. So that was the concern. Don't know if
Yeah.
that addresses your question.
So, and I think partly, so I think the difference too is like, is if you take, for instance, Wood's approach with the multi-program, right? As a tax abatement, that doesn't trigger a BOLI requirement because it's more of an indirect after the fact, after construction thing.
Right.
If any of these teams were to enter into a development agreement with the city, right, where the city was committing to putting a certain amount of money in to support the infrastructure or the other pieces of the project that are directly related to the development, and then you get above that $750,000 level that Abe was talking about, then you have the state BOLI coming in and saying, look, this project's going to be prevailed, and therefore, everything within the project, public and private, needs to hit this prevailing wage kind of level. So there are some, again, there's some questions about what's considered direct versus indirect, and there's a lot of arguments and conversations that go on with the state BOLI, but and Abe has seen this happen on a lot of the projects that he's worked on. Just those conversations just surface almost immediately once these development agreements come up.
And there are creative ways to try to mitigate BOLI up from taking place up front. And those are discussions you need to have with any of the teams that you're going to, that you might select.
Wood did send us their BOLI determination letter from Gresham Civic Station so that we could see how that determination was made. And I don't know if you want to know the details of it or not, but basically because they used the multi-program and they weren't, the city wasn't paying for roads and other elements that were crucial to it, they were determined to not have to have prevailing wage, yeah. It said that the city paid approximately $27,893.33, and by approximately, I mean exactly. And that was for an appraisal, the Alta survey, economic analysis, appraisal and residual land value analysis, review of residual land value analysis, and extend policy of title insurance premium and closing and escrow fees.
They just seemed very spot on when asking the questions in the interview versus the other two.
And in their follow-up, they made it clear that they want to make sure that whatever happens, they don't trigger that.
It tells you they've been through this
Yeah.
a few times, and they've got a strategy for helping get around it.
But I like the confidence that Wood had, but I didn't know if I felt like they really didn't hear the heart of our wish was not to have so many apartments, and not to have, to have more ownership and more open space down by the water. I just didn't feel like they were listening to that part.
I agree with you, but I think from listening to them financially to make it work with the road going all the way around, they need multifamily to make it work.
But then it makes us no different than Portland. It makes us no different than the
I
downtown
agree.
of Gresham, and that's not who we are.
I
It's
agree.
not what we
Is
want.
that what you're talking about?
Yeah, would.
Yeah, but they said they're flexible on changing their design.
They're flexible, but how far are they gonna be flexible?
I bet they'd put them back from the water.
Yeah, or who knows, maybe they can move the townhomes forward.
The townhomes are phase 3.
Or what?
Townhomes were phase 3.
Well, they're gonna sell off that property anyway to a developer that are gonna build. They're not gonna build.
Yeah, but they've also talked about 5-story apartments. We've never had 5 stories in, I just don't see that they see the vision that we've had all along. It's a real concern to me.
So really what it comes down to is that we need to determine who the city can work best with. And who's got the best vision for that. I mean, I know you like woods. I think to make this project work, though, we need to go through the mall and instead of around the mall. So I would see woods as being the backup if we can't go through the mall.
Wood said they
kept-
would like to go through the mall.
Yeah.
You know, that's their preference,
And then they would
but then they made an
redesign.
option, an alternate,
Right,
alternate,
right. So I think the community would like Capstone's vision better than they would.
Yeah, I like
either of
Capstone.
the others too.
the proposal best, but I like the wood teams as somebody that could work with the city better.
Right.
But the difference is very slight, but there is an edge with wood as far as working with the city. It seems like they very sincere and authentic and willing to listen to us and make changes more than the other two.
No, I don't see that Capstone would not be willing to work with the city.
No, I didn't say they wouldn't.
Right.
I'm just.
I mean, I think they are somewhat based here, so, in this region, so.
The authenticness that Jeff is alluding to, I think, is the flexibility. Just the willingness to, if we can get a road, we're in. If we don't get a road and we have to work around, we're in. We will do all the work and work with the community to listen, and we'll be there on the town center advisory board, we're in. You want us to go to the Parks Committee, we're in. A survey, we're in. We do community events, we're in. We don't want to pick a architect until we know what the vision is and, that's going to work here, we're in. Just that flexibility piece is what I heard, and to go along with Jeff, I really loved. When it came to Capstone, I loved everything until they just said, a road or we're done. And it made me cringe a little bit inside to just know that you're willing to work with us to a point and then you're going to stop. So we might put in 6 months or 8 months with them, and then they're going to throw up the white flag and walk away, and then we're going to go to wood. Where if we went with wood in the first place, we're going to try to get a road, but if we don't get a road, we're still your partner. We're still listening. We're still working with you. I get what Jeff's saying. Being in the room, I 100% get what Jeff's saying.
You can't get apartments.
But we get more apartments than we want.
I have a little different take. I kind of actually respected Capstone for coming out and saying, hey, we need this, it's critical to what we're trying to do. And I felt like that was their statement versus screw you. If you don't get the road, we're out of here. It's kind of like, we've got to have the road to make this work. And, the thing, I really liked meeting with Wood and hearing the sincerity and their willingness to do things. But on the other side, we asked them to come in with their best proposal to fit the town center vision. And I think that's where Wood kind of lost it for me, was 3 5-story buildings kind of up to that edge. I didn't think met the vision even partway. And it's gonna change and it's gonna be different than what it is, but it's kind of like, I kind of felt like this was the ice cream here. We were gonna see probably one of the best thought visions we were gonna see from these guys going in. And I do think access is not as important if you got 372 apartments.
Which one had talked about the land that they bought for $1,000? Was that Ethos?
That was what?
That was what?
Gresham, city.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So that $1,000 wasn't our property over here.
No, it was the Metro owned, it's Gresham Civic Station. So it's Gresham. and they got the land because Metro owned those lands. That's how those projects, that's a lot of how those projects pencil, is they get the land for free.
The Great Wall of China. I love that. But one thing I was impressed with about Woods is that, you know, this is what they showed here, but when they showed inside here, they had more of the wood exterior in it. It wasn't this stark stuff that they built in Gresham. I was happy about that.
The 5-story apartments killed it for me.
That could change though. It's not concrete.
Can't we say we don't want them? I mean, they're not cut in stone that they have to do those there.
You can say anything, but I think part of this is they came out with what they think is going to work with their model and with the property and all of those things. So it's kind of like, you know, okay, ash can it and start over. So, I mean, is that really where you're at? We liked you, but, you know, can you really rework this severely?
And then you have Capstone that if they don't get the road through, they're basically saying they're not interested.
They're saying it won't work.
It won't work, which I disagree. I think it could work.
So if we pick Capstone and they bail, do you think they'd come back?
You're asking me if the wood would come back? I don't know. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, I think they would be willing to have a conversation. At the end of the day, it's business. You know, if they think it's good for business, if they think they can do a product that fits their pro forma and their mission, and they can do something beautiful that they're proud of. Remember, they're proud of their work, right? So if they can do something that they could do and show off in this community, sure, I think they would come back. I don't think they'd be hurt feelings, or I don't think that would. And I know Michael a little bit, so I'm just guessing, but I don't think business works that way.
So, yeah, if I can jump in for just a minute. So I've been involved in projects in smaller cities where there was a first choice team that was picked. They worked really hard for 6 months and it just didn't work for them. And then they went to their second choice. And I've worked in other cities where there was a lot of deliberation about which team to pick, and they ended up picking a team that really didn't align with their vision. And then the city finally figured out that they weren't quite as nimble as they said they were going to be, and they went back to another team. So you're the ones who own the land. You get to pick who you want to work with. And if you want to give one team a chance for 6 or 7 months versus another team, it's certainly your option.
I've been involved in 2 projects where they came back, we were second, and happy to have that call when that came back, you know, as long as I wasn't being asked to go through the whole RFP and RFQ process. But if it was, hey, this didn't work out, would you be interested in talking to us? Sure, we'd be happy to. And I think given the timing, we've heard a lot about the timing of the economy and stuff like that. There's nothing that's burning a hole in anyone's pocket here. I think they're all patient. So,
to circle back on Chair Leamy's kind of guidelines for kind of making decisions, I am interested to know from the city and ex officio members, council, what I would say maybe top pro and con of each you foresee working with the city is for the developers. Just one. You can think of off the top of your head for each of them. Based on your interviews, based on your knowledge, obviously you've mentioned that they're all reputable, they all have, significant resources, but, with all that in mind, who, pros and cons maybe that you foresee?
I'm gonna be vague, because I really don't
That's
think
fine.
that's totally my role at this juncture.
Okay.
But what I would say is, there's a couple of words that I wrote down, because Marley said it, we're gonna try to craft a staff report. And what I wrote down was, as if I was, a vision was one of the words I wrote down. Who has a vision? Then I wrote down, who was a good listener? Who was same thing in the same vein, who was a good partner? Who understood the context, not only of the site, but in relationship to the larger downtown and the gorge? Who had creativity? Those are the things that I wrote down so that's how I was thinking that, well, that's how I imagined, based upon the conversation, that Marley's gonna craft the kind of the why of how the ranking happened. It may not be into the detail. I mean, it might include some of the stuff of this one had more units, this one had less units. But again, all that stuff is flexible. I think Abe's been talking about it all evening. It's just who does the city thinks is the best partner for the city? Who do you guys want to be talking to for 5 or 6 years? Through me and Marley, primarily.
I'll place that. No, just to make it really, really brief, and it's really kind of echoing a lot of what you guys have said already anyway. I mean, with Capstone, it's pretty clear that they have put out a vision that most closely matches what the community seems to be interested in. That's a huge, pro to me. It tells me that they've spent time listening, they spent time understanding. That's a good sign for a team. One of the cons is the implementation question. What if, right, you can't get that key element done? And that's just a challenge, right? That's going to be associated with that team. I think Wood is a little different. I mean, I've heard a lot about I'm not quite so sure about the program, so kind of on the con side, are they really the right one? But again, like people here have said, I mean, I think their willingness to talk, to engage, to listen. I know that some of the principals have been involved in tracking the town center plan for quite a while as well, and understand what's going on with the city. So I think those are pros. The ethos team was a little hard to judge a little bit in the interview, but I will say, regardless of what happens, there's a partner on that team that you have, right? And we have to figure out a way to work with them in a productive way going forward to make any vision for this area work, right? So regardless, I mean, David and I have talked about it, whether you put this road straight through or whether you use the existing right of way, either way, you're building access through that outlet center. And so, you have a partner there. They said at the end that they're willing to discuss. I think that's a positive. Let's build on that, and hopefully we can have some productive discussions moving forward.
Thanks, Matt.
I want to get one clarification here, and we talked about this $8 million that the Wood should put up there. $8 million is based on the apartments, and so if they cut apartments, they cut that 8 million down a percentage. Is that right?
Abe?
Yeah, so my understanding of the Woods approach is they are asking for tax credits that will equal basically the $8 million. So it's kind of a wash.
But yes, I do, John, I think, what was it, 372, I think was the apartment count.
Yeah, 372.
So if that becomes 250, right? I mean, then that, in theory, that's less value, it's less tax, and, you know, everything goes down, right? I
Right.
mean, the residual land value goes down, so you're probably talking different numbers at that point, I'm assuming. Is that replaced with something else? Is it replaced with commercial? Is it replaced with, you know, I mean, that's what we don't know.
But you don't get tax.
But you don't get the multi-tax breaks with like the commercial development,
Right.
that's right. So they'd probably be looking at some other, and they listed them in their proposal, you know, there's other things that you could do to offset, you know, that land cost as well. So they might be looking at those items.
I was just gonna say, they were the only ones that asked for the 10-year tax abatement.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's-
they're the only ones who asked for it overtly. It wouldn't surprise me that no matter who you get, they may end up asking for it as well. Again, you've got a preliminary vision and a preliminary deal structure, so, yeah.
I believe Capstone's proposal mentions it as well. I will double check. But Diane's had her hand up for a while. just so you
Oh,
know.
okay, Diane?
Thank you. I just want to remind us that we were told at the very beginning, if we weren't happy with any of them, like fulfilling the vision and what the people wanted, we could just start over. So Capstone, I had asked the question, I go, well, when they come in for interviews, what if we tell them ahead of time, we only want only 200 units total for residential? And somebody had mentioned to me on the team that said, no, we'll just let them come in. It's up to them to see what they propose and, you know, what they come up with. And they did. They came up with what they came up with initially after, like we said, hearing what the vision was and what we were looking for. So I'm just hoping that if we do choose Capstone, that we stand beside them and support their knowing that the center is going to be helping adding something to be a destination, being great for the community, being great for tourism, being great for the outlets. It's a win for everyone. But if we don't express that confidence in the vision, we got to remember too, the person that was trying to develop before that wanted to create a landmark and something special, and that also included a pathway through the center. I would think that staff would, if Capstone was selected, that they would work with them and then work also with the outlets, again, to create a win-win for everyone, because the outlets are a big part of our community. I didn't like the plan, and one of them, I can't recall right now, their idea of ethos, letting us enjoy the river, was creating this something that almost looked like a tunnel, but you weren't really getting to experience the plaza along the waterfront. So, and then Woods, I believe, was doing the large buildings along almost to the path, not understanding, you know, the space, and that we really find that river so special that we want to enjoy it, and we want other people to enjoy it and come eat and relax and spend their money, and also go visit the outlets. So again, if we don't like the plan, it doesn't mean like, oh, well, Woods was willing. I don't feel it's a good, strong statement for me to that Woods was willing to go through the center, to just make them like, place them in the number one position. Those are my thoughts for now. Thank you.
Do you want me to read what the deal terms says? I'm just gonna read the whole section of deal terms for Capstone. It is Capstone Partners' assumption that all new public streets, including an extension of 257th Way through the existing Columbia Gorge Outlet Mall and other infrastructure, including a pedestrian bridge connecting downtown Troutdale Commercial District with the Confluence site and new waterfront park plaza, will be funded with the City of Troutdale capital and resources. Capstone is also assuming that the new waterfront park and green space along the Sandy River Park will be fully funded and ready to be built before the first phases of the Confluence development has commenced. This is the same conceptual approach Capstone Partners utilize in each of the public-private partnerships with the city of Sherwood and city of Tigard. Other incentives could include, but are not limited to, SDC waivers and credits and TIF financing. Capstone will pursue any and all publicly available incentives that the city of Troutdale can provide, including a vertical housing tax credit or something similar, like the City of Portland multi-program, and any other permit assistance, financial fee waivers or reductions and or faster process that may be available to the development and its tenants.
So we go to vote and rank these now?
I think it seems like that would be a good thing to consider is to, well, let me ask a question. So yeah, we're gonna get to ranking it. Would you like, I mean, I get sort of, Mark, do you want to hear what, I guess, no, I think your ranking is probably the way to go. And then once you do that, we can pull out the information that we asked you to do a couple of weeks ago, based just upon the written materials to see how the two comport. So
Okay. So, we work our way around?
Sure. And
And I,
what I'm kind of doing is I'm putting each of your comments under your names, but then I'm also putting your summary comments. So, like, for example, Jeff said specifically favors the Capstone plan, but thinks that wood is the best for the city. That was his summary comment that I wrote. So if you have a summary comment, I'll write that down, and then I'll put the ranking next to your name, I guess.
well, I'll start with Carol.
I have Capstone first. Probably Wood second and Eagles last.
Yeah, so Zach, I also have Capstone first, Wood second, and Coast last in this place.
You can't vote.
Nope. I abstained.
Victoria?
I'm torn. I just think Capstone's not gonna work, although I love their whole thing. I like Wood, I think they'll work with the city better. Ethos, mainly because of Mr. New York. I don't like them at all. I just think he'd take over and do whatever he wanted. I'm gonna go with Capstone first, because they do the vision the best. With hopefully Wood as the backup.
Okay, so I had Wood Partners at 1 with a total of 80 points. I'm just gonna give you points to show you how close it is. And I had Capstone Partners number 2 at 78. So they're almost even. And then I had Ethos and Time Equities at 3rd with 45 points.
Will you repeat your point numbers again?
I had 80 for Wood Partners, 78 for Capstone, 45 Ethos Time Equities.
I think equally important, Jeff, is your interest in Wood is based upon, again, the one sentence that Marley's looking for.
Just the feeling that they would be willing to work with the city and to have the flexibility.
Okay.
Danny?
I got the impression that all of them would work with the city. not so much time, but even ethos. They all seem to be energized that the city was in the position that it was in and saying, hey, we want to partner with you on this. So I got that they all were kind of excited and willing to be a partner with the city. But with that, I felt that, especially from a vision standpoint, Capstone was one. And Wood too, because Wood was willing to make some changes. And then I had Ecos 3.
Diane?
Okay, I have Capstone 1, Wood 2nd, hoping they would grab Sam and also some others and create a vision that's more conducive to the original vision, and then ethos 3rd.
And committee member, is what's driving your thinking? I heard you say vision. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that correct to say? I don't know if you heard me.
Diane?
Vision, they even talked about the warm architecture. They even talked about, they gave examples so that we could look at Hood River or the Barlow Market District in Sebastopol, California. They painted that picture. As an artist, I know that the total sum of the parts equals the whole. And like they just paint it. They're creating something visionary that is a place that I really feel will keep the small town feel, be a place where Troutdalians love, and be a place where visitors will come.
Yeah, Capstone number 1. They have a strong feel of destination, strong connectivity to the river and nature, and strong team and connections for bringing in local business. And Woods, I have number 2. They have a strong team, and it looks like they would be willing to tweak what they put in there. So, and Ethos, I have number 3. Didn't have a lot of good stuff so far.
Just real quickly, Carol, can you just remind me what was your driving idea? I know you're ranking, but just what was the big thing for you and Capstone?
For me, for Capstone, it was because I felt that they were listening to our vision, and they seemed to understand the small town feel. Wood's second was, I'm hoping that they'll listen more and that they'll realize really how important it is to us that our vision is really looked at.
Okay.
Ethos, I just struggled during the whole entire interview, and so I wasn't able to really kind of cohesively understand everything that they were saying during the interview.
And no, thank you. And just Zach, I didn't write this down. So your key words for Capstone was what?
I think just based on kind of my comments earlier, I would say it's vision, local focus, placemaking, like, yeah, just buzzwords. There we go.
All that stuff
Yeah, all the good stuff.
all the good stuff.
Hashtag sustainability, whatever.
I don't want to put words in Diane's mouth, but one thing she kept repeating over and over again during the interviews, but she hasn't said tonight, is
talking about legacy, that we're making a recommendation about legacy for the next 20, 30, 40 years down there. We make this recommendation right. We're gonna be setting it up for our kids, our grandkids, to go down there and make a sense of place for legacy for a long time to come in the city of Troutdale. So Diane, I heard you loud and clear, and I'm just repeating your words.
Thank you.
And Victoria, what I heard you say was also about vision. And then Jeff, what I heard you say is about the flexibility.
And it's just the general feeling that they were the best to work with the city as partner.
Okay, best partner. All right.
Yeah, you can write community for Capstone too, because they had the best sense of community.
Okay. Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we're trying to use these key terms to put together what we need to put together for the staff report. So thank you. So you want to tell everybody what the, oh. Hi, Carol.
You're saying staff report, when are you,
Oh,
we're
we're-
presenting that to the,
So I'm going to do a quick, so on the 22nd? First. I just got the 22nd, which added last night. 21st, we present to the URA. And so they present to the URA. I introduced them pretty much, so,
okay.
but we need to write a staff report for that public hearing. That's, sorry if I wasn't being clear. That's what we're doing is.
And if any of you want to attend in the public, just listen in or via Zoom, I think that I'm sure the Urban Renewal Agency would like to see the support, especially after all the hard work that you've put into really evaluating and critically thinking about what has been proposed. You guys have put in so much effort into this process. So
what time is that meeting?
7 on the 21st.
Because it's not tied with the regular council meeting.
Correct, it is not.
Just something I thought was kind of interesting when we talk about working, and clearly to me, Capstone read all 204 pages of the town center plan and really tried to get that down on paper. And then the other thing that they did that I thought was really interesting was when we looked at their first concept plans and we commented on them, they came back with a revised plan based on some things that we
100%.
said in that meeting. And so it's like, I'm like, they're really trying to listen to what we want.
Yeah, in particular, the multifamily plan, you hated so much.
Yeah.
They
Moved
swapped
it.
out with, yeah, they did. It's good.
I just want to say that it looks like the ranking was pretty much the same with everybody except for me. But the difference between my first and second is only 2 points.
Yeah, totally.
And the reason that Capstone became number 2 for me is because they were very adamant about if we can't get the road through the center of the outlet mall, we're out. And I thought, man, come on, you can, I think it's doable to do a loop. You make a grand entrance, you have the proper signage. People on the interstate are gonna see the development, everybody's gonna know it's there. And once you get past, go around, get past the mall, you're there. The outlet mall is just a brief passing to get through, right? It's not really part of the project. I mean, yes, it is in a way, but.
I hear you, but I disagree.
It could be a part of the development,
Could be,
as
yeah.
opposed to a pass-through of the development.
You want to tell the results of what from the first one?
Sure, yeah. It was unanimous previously, and the opinions were with Capstone came first. So the interviews appear to have validated your previously held opinions on the proposals, and would seem to impress during their interviews and came out strong and you know, there's a lot of the things you are saying are very different than how you appeared to have felt previously. So they did interview very well.
They came in third last time, right?
Yes, they did.
Yes.
We were like,
You said it without me
Yeah.
saying it, yes.
So is that it for this?
I think so. I think we got everything that we need.
I need to get some nominations for vice chair. So I have to move into this position, we need.
Do we need to fill the vacancy with another member? I think we're down.
No, that's
with
true,
one,
right.
technically. Or are you able to?
That
remain
will
on
come
the-
up.
Right, so,
On it.
We're down 2 actually, because Diana Roberto is not on it either.
So will we just run this way until
I think
June?
so, yeah,
June when they do the next?
because you guys are still meeting, you have enough numbers to meet a quorum.
do we have a quorum without Heidi? Because she's not here at this meeting.
isn't it 5?
Yeah, you're fine.
We got Diane.
And we have
And
Diane.
we have Diane.
We have time.
Yes, you have a quorum.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
do you think, do you think it might be useful to have a motion with the ranking, or are we good to go with what we have?
We need a motion.
We do, okay. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to accept the ranking.
This is Zach. I'd like to submit a motion to accept the ranking of the TCAD for developers.
Okay, and a second.
This is Jeff, I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so it passed.
Good stuff.
So now, nomination. For vice chair.
All right.
We've done it to you.
I'm used to that.
Be vice chair?
Yeah.
I'll be vice chair.
Yeah. Okay, I nominate Carol Allen.
I second.
Any other nominations?
Carol's solid.
So do we need to do a roll call on that, or just a voice? Voice vote?
Ask
All
Tanny.
in favor?
He
Yeah.
knows this better than I do.
All in favor?
It's just voice vote.
It is.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed, other than Carol? Okay, all right. Well, then I guess we could take a motion to adjourn.
You're looking at me, so I will motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, here.
Cheers.
Thank you all.
Good meeting, everyone. Good night.
Well,
Diane.
thank you all. Good discussion.
Thank you, Ed.